Man, to the Red Sox. Never mind.
Oh, we are live. Yeah, sorry. I missed that.
They blow. Sorry.
I missed that. Sorry. Yes, we are.
We're
live. I started my Halloween costume, so you can follow along on Twitter follow along on Instagram actually at Eklund to see progress of my Halloween costume. So far, all I've done is buy a 99-cent extra large.
like $1.
Yes, it's cost $1. The whole thing has to be under $50. So this is I'm $1 in now, so I got 49 to go. We'll see what happens, but yeah, it's going to be fun. And
That's gonna be hard under $50. I'm curious as to how it'll come out.
It is going to be hard under $50.
You know how he's going to keep it under $50? He's going to steal half the stuff.
No.
That's funny though.
I do have some of the things around that helps a lot, So I mean, actually purchasing, I think I can keep it under 30. Actually, I'm really challenging to try to keep this because money's tight and we want to do something fun, but I want it to be good. So it's at the same time, if you're going to go between 30 and 50 to make it really good.
Yeah. Then you should spend the 50 because
you're going to spend. We do have the theory, and this comes from this is the Eklund saying around the house that if it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing, and that's always been our saying. So we kind of live by that around here. So if we're going to do it, if you're going to take all the time to do it, you got to do it right. So that's what we're going to do. But anyway, what do we have pre-show wise, Russ?
Okay, so we've got some cheating in baseball, and so let's talk about it for a minute because what is cheating and what is gamesmanship, and so
the old expression, Russ, is if you're not cheating, you're not trying, and it's only cheating if you get caught.
I know, but when you find out,
work with the IRS, though, I'll tell you that.
No, but when you find out, that guys were stealing signs in the 50s with a telescope, it's a little disheartening. There should be a limit. If you could do it in the game, you're smart enough to read the catcher and you're the opposing team, steal the signs. They're stupid enough not to hide them. But when you're using a telescope out in the outfield, that's a little much. So here's the thing. So in Boston, one of the pitchers the other night was a Matt Bryant, something like that. Was a reliever.
Matt Barnes.
Sorry. Maybe had pine tar, maybe on his arm, but I didn't see it. I know Barstool really thought that they had something because he kept rubbing up the ball and rubbing his belt buckle and doing all these things. But here's the thing: at the end of the day, I didn't think that was so egregious because the only thing I felt was egregious was the fact that he kept blowing on his hands, and actually the umpire. There is a rule. If it's not cold out, the umpire is supposed to stop a pitcher from doing that. You're not supposed to be allowed to actually do that. So that's something where I felt like the umpire could have just done that and derailed the whole thing. I didn't think it was a big deal. And it was 50-something degrees at game time. So maybe he was in the high 40s. So he didn't need to blow on his hand. So anyhow.
I didn't hear about that, but I just read this morning about, I don't know if you were going to talk about this. Oh, okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So then there's the Astros, and so the Indians are complaining now that there was a guy with a cell phone in the photography pit. They didn't say exactly what he was up to. I don't know if he was stealing signs. I don't know if he was listening to the strategy. I don't know what he was doing, but it's gotten to the point where Houston asked about his credential, and they want to see his credential, and they complained to Major League Baseball. That's one thing, and then there is another complaint for Houston, and I can't remember what the second complaint.
Well, no, what I read this morning, Russ, was that somebody had media credentials or was sitting in an area with media credentials at Fenway for Game 1 and was precariously close to the Red Sox bench.
That's the second one.
And he was texting and things of that nature. And purportedly it was strategy or what was going on in the Red Sox dugout, and he was escorted away, and Major League Baseball was made aware of it.
I got a real easy solution for this one. This one's a real easy one because we always sort of make fun of baseball because they have the phones and they don't text or use any high-tech stuff when they're calling the bullpen or anything else. To me, if you're a photographer on the field, you should not have access to a cell phone. You should basically have to turn your cell phone into security and you get it back after the game. There's no reason that guys on the field that aren't with the teams need a cell phone anyhow. And players shouldn't have them either. They should be in the locker.
Sure there is. If they're working for an outlet, They could be they need to be contacted by their editor because there's
that's
sure.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I understand you're wanting to curb potential spying here. I mean, if what they're saying is true, this is basically Spygate of Major League Baseball. It's the equivalent of that. But you know what? It was made pretty clear by Deadspin that the Red Sox had decoded Luis Severino's tipping pitches, because they had a side-by-side video of like Mookie Betts in the dugout saying fastball.
Right. But if you're tipping pitches, that's on your pitching staff. That's on the pitcher.
But that's based on investigation and scouting and extraordinary things.
That's had players tipping pitches too, and they eventually cured them of that. And that's what you do. That's why you have coaches, so they cure the player of that. But these other things, these are high-tech things that can easily be removed, and it's a shame that teams still are trying to do these things. Why they can't? I mean, you're playing a kid's game to begin with. Yeah. Why can't you actually just go out there and play? What is so freaking hard about that?
I'll put a capper on this. If they're cheating to defeat the Red Sox, I'm in favor of it.
None of that matters, okay? Because of what I'm about to show everyone.
Oh, okay.
All right, because this is this has to be seen.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
All right, so all right, ready?
Sure.
Here goes.
Oh wait, well Russ isn't even there, so he can't even.
History teaches that the greatest sale ever was the sale of Manhattan for only $24.
Teacher, you're wrong. Because during the July sale at Just Shirts, Hilton tops were $12 are now $5. Mark Elliott were $16, now $6. Laverne were $18, now $7. NRG were $16, now $9. And supplies won't last.
The lesson we've learned today: the sale at Just Shirts is making history, and Just Shirts is at a mall near you.
Okay, now
the problem is that lady is in a wheelchair now. She's like 70.
Now, all right. Does everyone know what they just saw?
I picked out Russ right away. I was like, it has to be that guy. The only thing that was confusing was the guy had a full head of hair.
Right. Now, he was in the red shirt, and he zoomed in on me for a second, and then I turned around.
You're not the guy talking there, right? That's not. It's like,
No,
not the guy talking.
He's looking up like this.
All right.
That was me in 1983. I was 20.
We got it. We get to let's examine this again for 1 second.
Come on. Let's not do a Zapruder film of this, for Christ's sake.
No, go ahead. Feel free.
We have to. It's just this doesn't happen every day. All right. So hold on.
Okay, I'm gonna break out the video where you fell off that ball.
Oh yeah, no, that's fine. All right. Anyway, for those of you curious, that was like a 1970s Just Shirt commercial that Russ was in.
Yeah. Next thing we know, Russ is going to be in one of those old Crazy Eddie commercials.
Oh yeah. No, it's so.
His prices are insane.
That was so New York. It was like it was like a Jerry Seinfeld character talking there. It's pretty.
Yeah,
funny.
It was a New York regional commercial, and Just Shirts was in all the malls, and they had a place called Sid's Pants. That was their other place, and they used to compete with Chess King, which Eck looks like a Chess King guy. And
I can't believe you. I look like a Chess King guy.
Yeah, look up Chess King. You'll see
what Chess King is. I don't look like a Chess King guy. I was more of a more of a Spencer's character.
Well, everybody was a Spencer's person. I mean,
Spencer still exists.
But at any rate,
it was in my mall. Like we have Spencer's in our mall now. It's pretty funny, and it's
Spencer's still around.
Eck had 10 different varieties of whoopee cushions.
Oh yeah.
Sure he did.
No, yeah.
So I did have a hockey revelation that I'll mention.
Go ahead.
About Austin Matthews.
Let's start the show. Let's do the show.
We'll do the show? Okay.
We'll put that in the show because it's hockey related.
There you go.
All right. So, yeah, Russ is in a red shirt. You can find it yourself. It's on Russ's timeline. I won't show it again, but it's there. Remember, look for it. Mm-hmm. All right, here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It's Thursday, October 17th, 2018.
I'm crazy, Mike Agello, and the webcasts are insane.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
That's an old reference. So funny. And I'm Eklund. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast comes every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And we're going to start with Russ, I guess, agreeing with me finally on Austin Matthews. So I want you to start first. Did you have a revelation that Austin Matthews does deserve to get paid as much, if not more?
No, I mean, McDavid setting records.
You're high, but anyway, go ahead.
McDavid setting records, Matthews can't. That has nothing to do with this conversation. What this conversation is I looked it up, and actually right now for the early part of his career, and when you look around the league as far as goal scorers, he's second to Ovechkin for goals per game.
Right.
He's zooming by Patrick Laine. Now, here's the thing. Patrick Laine may have the prettier shot. I get it. He's got an Ovechkin kind of shot.
Yeah.
But Austin Matthews is just putting in the goals. And it doesn't matter how you put him in. Not to say he doesn't have a great shot either, but obviously there's a lot of things going on with the Leafs offense. And so right now, he's getting close to Ovechkin, although Ovechkin's been doing it for a million years. But he is becoming, the second best goal scorer in this game.
Well, he really improved his. I mean, it's really bizarre to say that he's improved his skill set over the first 2 years, where he scored 40 and I think it was 34 goals last year. But he worked with a skills guy named Daryl Belfry during the season. His shot is quicker and stronger. He is bigger and stronger this year. So yeah, I mean, it's not surprising that, the pace that he has set, he's continued to go along. And I think it's just going to continue to go on. But I just have to touch on this before we get on to other stuff.
I guess I'm this topic too, but go ahead.
Yeah, but this is how hyperbolic things are with the Leafs right now. Kasperi Kapanen is scoring at a pretty decent pace. It's been a week and a half.
Yep.
He's got 8 points in 5 games. All of a sudden, a couple writers in Toronto who I respect, they're talking about, Kasperi Kapanen's an RFA at the end of this year, and if he continues on this pace, it's going to be a problem for the Leafs. And I think it was Darren Drager said, well, he could, if he has a 60-point season, he could demand upwards of $5 million a year. Would you please cool your jets? The guy had 9 points last year.
Right.
The basis of a salary negotiation is your history throughout the previous contract.
Right.
Nylander scored 60 points 2 years in a row. He has every right to demand 6, 7, 8 million. They're not going to give it to him, but he has every right to demand it. Kapanen's coming off of entry level. He's got 9 points. Even if he scores 60, he's getting a bridge deal. He's getting $2.5 to $3 million at the most. So this $5 million stuff is friggin' ridiculous. Yeah, and that's what, and it's similar to the escalation talk about Marner's contract and about Matthews' contract. If Matthews scores 50 goals, sure, then we'll talk about him being at the same par as McDavid. But until he does, it's not happening.
Right. I agree.
Oh my gosh! I mean, I wish somehow that Leaf fans could just enjoy things. Like I wish there was just a way that they could just like say, this is wonderful. Like Nylander, that the captain is scoring. Like, don't worry about this. Like, don't worry about it. I mean, it's amazing. I totally agree with you, Mike. It's gotten out of hand. I captain and grew up right behind my in-laws. I knew him pretty well. He's a great kid. I watched him play in as a kid in hockey. One of my best friends was his coach for several years as a youth hockey player. I'm a big fan of Kapanen's, but and he might get it. He might, but if you have that problem, that's a good thing. I mean, it's not like let's what happened to that? Like what happened to like it would be a great thing if we have another 40 goal scorer. Like we can figure it out. Like you can always trade one of these guys for a quality defenseman. Sure. It's like you don't have to sit here and stress about the fact that he might. And all Drager's doing is stoking the Leaf fans in a way that's like just forget about it. It's but like part
of the enjoyment of this team being good right now is to extend them being good for as long as possible. And we have seen with teams like LA and Chicago and to a lesser extent Pittsburgh that, paying these players, you can't pay everybody what they're worth. You have to keep salaries in control to be able to extend the window of success. And that's what I'm saying. It's like you're obviously going to pay Matthews a ton of money. You're going to be paying Marner a ton of money. There's talk this morning about William Nylander and Kyle Dubas and their representatives meeting in Zurich, Switzerland, to discuss what's going on the new contract. They're going
to try to put a peace treaty together for the war, and then they're going to discuss the contract in Zurich, Switzerland, right? I mean, why?
I mean, if Dubas is smart, he would go to the Lindt store and pick up a few bags. That's a good icebreaker right there.
Some dark chocolate there and a cuckoo clock.
Swatches. Just grab some swatches. They're still worse.
One.
Now, just morphing to, or just moving to that for a second. It appears that this is sort of like, I mean, there's a December 1st signing deadline. That if he doesn't get signed, then he cannot play in the NHL. The thought is that this is Dubas's attempt to get the Nylander camp to maybe take a bridge deal.
This is a Maple Leafs thing. It's not like a real rule. I mean, it's like a Maple Leafs.
No. This is an NHL rule. After December 1st, he is ineligible to play. Yeah, he's ineligible.
So why do we have players signing all the time from Europe in the middle of January and February?
Because they're either unsigned or they're draft picks who have played in another league and they have to wait till the other league is completed, like the SHL.
Right. So a guy who is this is a weird kind of a weird.
Yeah, he's a Leaf possession. He's a restricted free agent.
So restricted free agents have to sign before December 1st.
Right. If he signs before December 1st, he can come back to the NHL, no problem. If it's after December 1st. He is not eligible to play in the NHL for the rest of this season. He can go and play in the KHL for a year. He can go play in the Swedish league for a year. He cannot come back. So that's I think what they're trying to do is prevent a Radulov type of situation where he's holding out and stays held out. And it does
not feel constitutional. Can I throw that out there just for a second? Like, this feels a little bit like,
but it's been collectively bargained.
Right. Well,
yes. Yeah. I mean, but I wonder if somebody challenges.
I think it's in there simply because of what Mike said. Yeah. Otherwise, these things could drag on all the time.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with that's why it's there for sure. And part of me is thrilled that we won't be talking about it past December 1st. But
right. But I think this whole meeting in Switzerland is to sort of like, okay, let's get on the same page. Let's jumpstart things here. And it was explained by Elliot Friedman and on the weekend, the Leafs might be going to a bridge deal of 4 years, and normally a bridge deal of 4 years leads players right into UFA. But Nylander, his first year in the NHL, when he got called up from the Marlies, he only played 22 games. The clock on unrestricted free agency starts after 40 games. So Lou Lamoriello, by calling him up and only playing him only allowing him to play 22 games, gave the Leafs an extra year. So he could sign a 4-year deal, and he's still an arbitration eligible RFA after 4 years. That will be very attractive to the Leafs if they can get him signed for a decent amount, or if they decide to trade him, that'll be very attractive to other teams to be able to retain him for a long time on a lower salary. But that's the whole thing. Nylander's camp wants to stay in Toronto, but they want a contract that apparently will keep him in Toronto, and nothing will keep him in Toronto if he signs a deal that doesn't allow them to get him at a price point. So that's why I think they're at loggerheads right now.
Okay. All right. Going back to the Matthews thing for a second.
Yeah.
I think you're definitely right, Russ. I mean, obviously the numbers are there, but the thing that impresses me about Matthews from like a goaltender perspective is I remember when I was going through the ranks as a goalie, and the first thing you learn is when you're younger is obviously to learn how to play the angle, which means coming out on the player. And one of the mistakes, and cutting off the angle, basically the cut. We all know what angles mean, but there's a whole thing I can get into about it. But it's kind of interesting. So one of the tougher things for younger goalies to understand when you play an angle is that you play the angle of the puck, not the player, right? So in hockey, we hold it. You hold your stick out like this. So if I come out and I'm playing the angle of the player, like you would in soccer, where your player is kicking the ball right from under his body, you can't. You're going to be way off your angle completely, and a lot of times even NHL goalies get caught playing the angle of a player and not the puck, because the puck can be held out like this. Well, the longer a guy's arms are, right, the more he can adjust the angle that the puck's coming from really quickly, from from almost like 3 feet this way to 3 feet this way, right? So and that you have to adjust to as a goalie. What Matthews does when I remember as a kid, a lot of guys would shoot, pretty much all the same. They would take the shots, and you could. It was pretty easy. As I got older, one of the tricks, that you would find when you grew up through the ranks was that a player would do that thing where they have the puck out here, then they bring it in tight and shoot it.
Right.
And that shot, is really tricky because you have to. If you're out here, he brings it in tight and shoots it. You're off the angle, so you have to adjust as he's bringing it in. But at least what you could play on that is that it was pretty much the same thing, that they would bring it into pretty much the same spot and shoot it from there. Right. What Matthews is phenomenal at is shooting anywhere along the plane. Like, he could take it all the way out here. He could bring it all the way in. He could shoot somewhere in the middle. And you never really know where he's going to shoot from. So trying to play the angle on Matthews, it becomes like virtually impossible. It's like
it's indefensible, Ak.
Yeah. You can't move that quickly. You just cannot move. As a goalie, you can't adjust that quickly.
I had this discussion with a former NHLer a couple games ago, because the patented Matthews move is, some people call it a toe drag. I call it an inside move, where he pulls the stick in basically near his skates and then fires a wrist shot, and he can, and like as you said, he changes the angle of the shot. But the thing is, like, Alex Ovechkin early in his career, he would make the same move and he would beat everybody in the same move constantly.
Brett Hull made this move famous. I mean, this was Brett Hull's thing.
Right, and eventually NHL defensemen got wise to it, and then he had to adjust. It took him a few years to learn some new tricks, but he eventually adjusted. There's no way to adjust to Matthews and with this inside move and with this toe drag, because if you try to cheat towards the inside move, he can just shoot it regular where the puck is. And it's more in the
plane, like anywhere along that plane too. Like the first goal he scored on Carey Price, the first goal he scored this season, was like halfway between out here and here, and it looks awkward as hell. Like when you see the shot itself, you're like, it's a beautiful. Where that goal goes on Carey Price is beautiful, but actually, if you just were to focus on Matthews, it really looks strange, because you don't see players getting power from that point. You don't see that. You usually see it either from far out or in tight, but you don't see it in the middle, and it looks like he's like kind of tripping over himself. But the shots, like it's like you can see that Price is like, how am I? What can you possibly do? Like, you can't play that angle.
I'll tell you what I think teams are going to have to do, and to deal with the Leafs and Matthews and everything else, is it's kind of like basketball. I think they're going to have to play man to man, and they're going to have to not switch sides, not do anything, just stay with that guy.
That's the thing. The defense has to stop the shot from occurring, because the goalie.
Right. You have to be right up on these guys. What I used to do that would frustrate players, right, in basketball, was I couldn't always steal the ball, right, but I would keep knocking it away. As a defender, you got to just keep knocking the puck away, because the longer they have the puck, the worse off it's going to be for you. They only need it for a few seconds, and then you get pass, and it's a goal. Defenses need to frustrate the Leafs. Right now, nobody's doing that.
So
yeah, it's a hard job. It's a hard job.
James in the chat room thinks we're crazy, and he says something like, "Ugh, painfully pulls it in to get more on the shot." Come on, that's not the case. I mean, that's not like, I mean, that you can get more on the shots. It's funny that it's not really a toe drag. I think of a toe drag more as a move when you're skating up the ice, but this move is. Because this move is stationary. This move, or it can be skating, but it's not a move to beat a defender. It's a move to take a shot. So I think the toe drag is more of a move to beat a defenseman.
You know what I would relate it to, Russ? It's like, because there's almost a little bit of a delay to it as well, because it's you remember like in baseball how hitters were completely distracted by Sid Fernandez of the Mets, who had that herky-jerky motion.
Yeah, he would hide the ball. You couldn't see it.
Right. And the thing was that when he threw, his arm would come out, but then the release would be about a second later, and it threw everybody off. With Matthews, he makes this move, and it throws off the timing. The goalie is expecting the shot to come like a second later, and he's got time for the goalie to basically make the first move. And on the one that Ak was talking about, the Price one, I think he picked the top corner. Price had already committed. He'd already committed, and he beat him.
And it's like, and it's, I mean, to commit, I mean, Matthews gets the puck off so quickly in the first place. To commit is a hard thing to do, but actually, Price actually was in the right spot for where he started, and Price had committed to him pulling it in, is what he had done. Like and it is not true that you get more power from it when it's close to your body. You don't. I mean, natural, science says that, when you have a lever, that's longer like this, you get more power when it's further out. The other thing from a goalie's perspective when you're actually watching that shot come in. A shot from out far away, you just have the blade and the puck, and that's easier to pick up than when you get into the skates. Like when you pull it into your skates and you're shooting, it's a whole different world, because when that puck is released, also is coming straight at you with the skates. Yeah. It's really,
I just think you've got to, as a defenseman, you've got to have him change that angle from what he doesn't like to do.
And the other thing is there's some video or photos out there. If you watch Matthews in terms of how he handles the puck, his hands are higher up on the stick, and he's got like a specific flex on his stick that allows him to generate power tighter in with the, I don't know if it's the lie of the stick or whatever, but the angle, but he can generate a lot of power on that wrister closer into his body as opposed to other people. So that is not something, I don't know how any defenseman defends.
The only thing, I'll tell you something that I would try. I would have, and again, you're naturally thinking, well, I've got to put my top pair on the line when Matthews is out there, but I think you got to have someone with really long reach out there when Matthews is out there, because you can no longer get bodies on players, right? The real good ones, you can't do it anymore. You don't slow them down. You don't lean on them. The game's not slow enough to do that. The only thing you do is stick check, poke check, reach, and try and put your stick down and block it. And so you've got to find some guys with long reach to go against that line.
Yeah, you're right, and it, more than reach to me, it's active stick. Like it's
active stick is everything.
That's like everything, because you could reach out there and get the puck, but it's not going to matter. I would almost argue. I mean, this is a really fine tuning. If we could get a defenseman on to talk about it, it'd be kind of cool. But I would almost argue that a shorter stick might be better in a situation like this, because your shorter stick you can be quicker with. Quicker back and forth. You do have to, part of this is definitely just annoying Matthews, because what Matthews is doing is so instinctual. The best way to get under his skin is to annoy him, so he can't have time to think or do it, because you're actually stopping it. So that's why, like last year,
I've actually never seen the guy get frustrated yet.
No,
yeah, I know.
And this is why we saw remember the famous Kadri versus Matthews game. That's like the way in Kadri versus McDavid game.
Right.
That's like the example of the way you stop somebody like that. You get under their skin, and it's hard to do, because these are superstar players who have been, since they've been playing since they were 5 years old. People have been trying to get under their skin in games.
It's tough to get underneath McDavid's skin, because it's tough to catch him.
Right.
And as we saw last night, a team that was down 4-1 and getting ridiculously outplayed by the Winnipeg Jets. And I texted everybody and said, the Oilers are terrible, and they were terrible up to that point. And the Jets, and even Peter said it was a complete crap show by the Jets, who sat back on a 4-1 lead and let Connor McDavid take over that game, and they ended up losing 5-4 on a Darnell Nurse overtime goal. Yeah. You can't do that. You cannot allow Connor McDavid to beat you, because he's a one-man team basically, and he did it last night.
The one thing you can't do is the equivalent of prevent defense in hockey with him, because he'll just take it to you. And I think he has 9 assists on their 9 goals recently.
Yeah,
like,
he's been not involved in one goal. I think one of the last.
It's almost all their offense. It's crazy.
No one can mark. You can't really mark players like that in hockey. That's like when you watch youth hockey. That's what happens. They put and so these guys are used to being marked. And what happens when you mark a player is it becomes you try to mark him out of the game, and your player might stop him defensively, but that player is marking him. In hockey, you only have 5 players to create offense from. So if you mark him out, you're taking a player out to create an offense from.
And just a little note to the NHL with their center ice package. It's like, because I'm a subscriber to the NHL center ice package. The one game that I wanted to watch last night more than anything was Edmonton versus Winnipeg. And what do you think? The only game that was in standard def, that was not involved, was not offered in high def on their channel. It was Edmonton Winnipeg. So thank you very much.
It was on high def in the
right, but the thing too with
might have been your cable subscriber.
Here's the other thing also in regards to McDavid. Obviously, there's not much weakness there. To be honest, you got to try and shut off the passing lanes and make him shoot.
Yeah.
Like that's what you have to do, is isolate him and make him shoot, because he makes other players better. he's not a prolific goal scorer, but he's a great goal scorer. But if you make him shoot, that's the best you can do.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah. And actually, the best you can do is to keep the puck in their zone. I mean, that's like the best thing you can do against McDavid or Matthews is to keep the puck in the opposite
away from him. Yeah,
in their own defensive zone to attack. Like you have to attack. Like that's the old line from Herb Brooks in the Olympics. We're not going to beat the Russians by defending them. We're going to beat them by attacking them, right? And that's the bottom line with these players of this caliber.
Now, the last thing I had heard about the whole Jake Dotchin thing in Tampa was that there was some sort of appeal going on for him being his contract being terminated because he was 30 pounds overweight or 25% body fat or whatever the hell it was. All of a sudden today, Jake Dotchin is placed on waivers by Anaheim. Nobody knew that Anaheim even signed him. So Anaheim apparently is signing him to a 1-year contract, and he has to pass through waivers to go down to San Diego. So what happened to the whole appeal? Did it not get?
I guess maybe they dropped it. Maybe they discussed it with the team, and the player just said, "All right, forget it. Just put me on waivers and keep it quiet," and that's what they did.
Or he finally got a deal that was the same as his deal with Tampa or pretty close to it. And he said, okay, well, I'll just move past this and go someplace else. Honestly, I think there's a
team like Anaheim got him because, they're so bad on defense. I mean, how did they?
Well, that's the thing, Russ. I'm wondering if a team claims him. Why wouldn't they?
Because of the problem that you just said.
Well, I don't know. Maybe.
All right, but here's the thing that I've learned, and I'm learning a little bit more in our cap world here. Mm-hmm. Teams are less likely to take on projects now because you're taking up one of the 50 contracts. You're all these other things now that come and play into it. Teams are so close to the edge with the cap, with the contracts, that they don't want to take on projects.
Unless you're a team in dire need like Detroit today when they claimed Jakob de la Rose from Montreal. Who I liked him as a prospect a couple years ago. He's been yo-yoed up and down from the AHL constantly. And it's like, okay, if he gets a chance with Detroit and just they play him regularly, I think he actually could be a pretty decent NHL player. But, I don't know. We'll see.
All right, so here Matt asks a question, and I don't know what Connor McDavid said is in regards to medical application of cannabis in hockey. That is, again, something that will be collectively bargained. And because, look, like the NBA, as an example, they don't test for cannabis. There's a reason for that. So if the NHL decides, yes, you could use it for X, Y, or Z, then they'll collectively bargain in. If they don't, then they'll say no. I mean, again, all you have to look at is like regular law in real life. Just because it's legal in, let's say, Colorado, right? If you're a federal employee of the government, you still can't smoke it. They drug test. You'll lose your job.
Right, and the NFL still suspends you for 4 games if you're caught with. I mean, I know that because there was a Buffalo Bill player who got suspended twice for smoking up. So it's
really up to the owners and then up to the associations to the NHL and the NHLPA to talk it out.
Well, I mean, there is definitely, some of the lotions and stuff like that for pain and stuff like that. I'm starting to,
there's definitely an application for it, no doubt.
There are things that need to just be, we need to get up with the times on. I mean, this isn't a moral issue,
No, but it's going to be a CBA issue because I think this is CBA.
I think it'll be allowed. Like I have a tendency to believe that there won't be much of a fight back on this one as far as certain things. They'll have to define it.
Well, the reason it has to get defined, I'll give you the reason, okay? So if you allow it in the league and say, yes, it could be used for medical application, then you get the problem like in baseball where guys were taking Adderall and they didn't even have ADD.
But Adderall's different,
But I'm just saying, everything can be exploited.
And Adderall's such a strange thing, too. That's a really...
No, I know, but I'm just saying, everything can be exploited. And you don't
give them an inch, they'll take a mile.
Correct.
What apparently he talked about, according to Mark in the chat room, who's been putting good stuff up there, has been saying that he talked about the use of cannabis versus the prescribed opiates that were being pushed on him by doctors. This is what he did. And this is, I always go back to Mike Richards on this thing. Richards, Richards got hooked on this stuff from NHL doctors. It's like So that's always tough to like say. And a lot of people are obviously the opioid issue. Everybody knows somebody who's going through that. So it's like, so he's being pushed on that, where, you know, cannabis would have totally been a different situation.
But the doctor could still say no. It's still at the end of the day.
But when you're in that much pain, making that much money, and your career's on the line,
you know, you're overprescribing. I mean, there is that problem. But what I'm saying with this one is, what the owners don't want is to have guys just go beyond the lotion, doing it every day, and then them seeing a drop in production. Because if that happens, then you're going to have a big fight on your hands.
Yeah, you will.
Which is like I said, which is why when the next CBA comes up, this is going to be an issue where maybe there will be agreement on both sides, but there will be a concern on the part of the owners that just what you said, that the players will, you know, they'll open up a door for some use, and they'll run a Mack truck through it, and that's the concern. Because, you know, I mean, yes, it has applications in terms of pain reduction. I have a friend who's got migraine headaches, and they're prescribed those, you know, the gummies, you know, that they can take, and that helps alleviate the pain. But, you know, who's to say that it can't be abused? So, I mean, that's the thing. It's going to have to be defined by both sides, because, I mean, right now, 7 teams in Canada, you know, they're under auspices where it's legal to use. A team in Seattle, if that ever happens, it's legal in Washington, it's legal in Colorado, but then it's not legal everywhere else. So then it's an uneven playing field.
But, you know, like CBD. Now the CBD part of it, not the THC part, but the CBD part of it is legal in a lot of places, and you can get it on Amazon. You can get it like, and it's you know, CBD is legal in Pennsylvania now. You know, you can buy it.
And I'll tell you what's going to happen with that. Even though you're seeing sporadic cases where people say it works for me, they're going to want to see real testing, because that's the only way they're going to, just like anything else, like with any kind of testing they do, that it actually works before they agree to do it. And that's going to be the problem. It's going to take a little while.
I just had this discussion with somebody the other day who got prescribed CBD in Pennsylvania as a lotion, which is not the like hallucinatory part of you know, of marijuana. It doesn't have any psychedelic effect to it or anything. That it's just a calming effect basically. And so they got this lotion, and they were, you know, they were using it for like a couple of herniated discs they have, and they were suggesting that I try it too, because I've got some herniated disc issues and I have never tried it. But I said, okay, you know, I wouldn't be opposed to trying it. But they said really what it did for the pain for them was that it just kind of mellowed the pain out, you know, like in a really funny way. They just said it just sort of numbed it, but it didn't make it feel like, you know, other pain, because they've been on opioids, they've been on all kinds of stuff before. And they said this was a totally different kind of pain relief. That was like, kind of,
I know Riley Cote well. He works with a company or owns one. We can have him on the show.
Yeah, we should do that. I mean, I think that this is, I think it's an important thing, and I do think it's important for guys like McDavid to step up, because this is the opioid issue in the NHL is such a big deal that no one wants to touch.
Well, it's an issue everywhere, and I'm not saying
it's everywhere, but it's a major. The reason it feels worse, and it's an issue everywhere, no question about it, but the reason it feels worse in pro sports is you're dealing with, like, you know, millionaires and stuff like that. You're dealing with teams who are trying to win at all costs, and you're dealing with there's more of an it feels like there's more of a like appearance of evil aspect to it when you have like a guy who's required to work hard. Like, for example, say you had a construction worker who had a hurt back, you know, and then the construction company had the ability to have a doctor to give him opiates so he'd keep working on construction. Everyone would freak out about that. They'd be like, "What? That's crazy! You know what? We can't. You know, he's hurt. He should be off of work or whatever." But this is what's happening in the NHL. You know, this is clearly what's going on. You know, and the pressure is intense, and opioids just don't. They're terrible. They don't help at all. And I mean, they make everybody feel fine for a little while, but it's a short term fix. And so much of the NHL and sports in general is short term fix oriented. That this is a huge issue.
Now, Ken, let me just move it to something here, because the news broke an hour ago that Brady Tkachuk suffered a torn ligament, and he's out for a month for the Senators. And, you know, the Senators are surprised. What's that?
Torn ligament where?
I think it was a knee ligament, but I'm not sure. It just the description just said torn ligament. They said he was out a month. But I'll see if I can find anything clarify it. But this on top of Elias Pettersson being out. I mean, there's nothing really you can prevent injuries from happening unless it's a suspendable act. And I have to go back to the hue and cry about the Pettersson situation and the suspension to Matheson. It's like, 5 years ago that hit and the pile drive would have been acceptable.
Right.
And now it's not. So are we getting to a situation like in the NFL where the quarterback you may as well put a flag on him instead of being able to sack him?
I mean, look, the Pettersson one was preventable. I don't know how Tkachuk got it, but I'm going to guess based on the way he plays, going to happen.
I thought it happened in the Flyers game. I think
I'm checking right now.
Yeah,
but it's a torn ligament in his leg is what.
I mean, the one thing I appreciate about Tkachuk, and I told people this, and this is something I noticed early on, is that
leg injury.
Okay, he gets into the offensive zone and he blows things up. But when he's doing that, he's checking people, he's pushing people, he's doing stuff. He plays a physical game. I'm not worried about him.
I wonder how. I'd love to have a doctor and find out how, when it is that your ligaments have fully developed. I just curious at what age. If there's an age, if it's
yeah,
because that would be curious because when you see younger players get these knee injuries, it really it's the first thing I always think about. It's like, okay.
Well, I mean, I know I just had a recent conversation with an orthopedist, and we talked about the pitching shoulder for a baseball player, and there's definitely something with that and age where you could, if I start messing around with certain pitches by the age of 13, I could, be a cripple by the age of 17 by just doing that because it's not fully formed. Ligaments, I'm going to guess it's the same as bones. I'm going to say, once you're probably 17, you're fine.
Yeah.
In fact, I think ligaments are more flexible and more pliable early. Then they become more atrophied as you get older. So maybe I think the flexibility of young athletes is greater than older athletes.
Yeah, I don't think there's a way to prevent all of these things, but
I think it's funny because I know some players who are now starting. There are some youth hockey teams around here that are starting to have everybody wear knee braces preventively, ahead of time. And I'm a fan of that. I think if you just make it part of your equipment, because this game is so horribly designed for your knees. The whole sport is just a terrible knee injury waiting to happen, and all the time, and I think that if you could get used, if all the players got used to just growing up with preventive knee braces on, it would prevent some things, not everything, but it would prevent the catastrophic knee injuries for sure.
It would prevent speed too.
It would prevent speed, but that might be okay because Kevin we were talking the other day, we were on here the game is headed towards a place of which we can't get back from, a place where everybody's moving so quickly that you can't protect it.
I think you can't really do anything about that because also you got to remember, blame the skate manufacturers too. The skates are way better than they were 30 years ago as well.
Yeah, but
and ice better, everything's better all the way down the line.
But think of it this way: we've already put limitations on fighting in the league and on hitting on the league because of concussions. And now, if we follow that track, that train of thought, we're going to limit speed because of the concern of injuries. Why not just undo the sport altogether? Because every positive aspect of it is being eliminated.
You sound like an NFL fan in the 1920s or whatever. It doesn't want hard.
No, but I mean,
if you can make something that's going to protect you, you do it.
Right, but sports aren't safe.
They're not safe, but I mean, but there is a reality to the human body. There is a
right. Then don't play. It's a risky proposition. This is why these players get paid millions of dollars. I think they're aware of the risks.
Helmets. I mean, don't play if we have to wear helmets. I mean,
no. But I'm saying you're putting limitations on what players can do based on the fear of potentially being injured.
I'm not saying we should.
Remember, heck, even the helmet is not going to prevent you from getting.
I know. The helmet's its own thing. Believe me, I know all about it. So concussions. I've studied them. I had them. I had to stop playing because of them. It had nothing to do. I was a goalie, so I had a mask on. I was fully equipped, and I never had it, and it didn't help me. So concussions are about being jostled quickly, no matter where you are or what you're wearing, and also I fully believe are hereditary. I think you're more hereditarily prone to concussions.
Well, I mean, the Lindros brothers would help prove your point.
Yeah, and I know so many people. I mean, and I'm sure we all know so many people who who are related to each other who they both had concussions. Like my daughter has had concussions in soccer, more than the other goalies, some of the other goalies around. And I think that's I think there's something hereditary in the way our brains are.
Well, there you go. See, someone in the chat room said soft rubber pucks are coming. Actually, I don't know if you go to the Hockey Hall of Fame and you play goalie against the Nerf pucks that get shot out, they come pretty fast. I got to tell you.
Yeah, next thing we're going to use Milek orange rubber pucks.
I'm back. I could be in the league. Like that's my thing.
I remember playing with the Milek balls in the winter when it was so cold.
Oh, they hurt. They
would break.
Remember they would break in half?
Yeah.
I mean, because like when we were kids, I mean, there was the orange Milek ball and the blue Milek ball, right? The orange.
We played with the orange. We never used the blue.
We played with a tennis ball.
Weather. The blue was for cold weather. The orange was for hot weather. And if it was cold enough to use basically the theory was if it was cold enough to use the blue ball, you shouldn't be playing outside at all. That's how cold it had to be. But then they introduced the pink ball.
Yeah, we played with a tennis ball.
Yeah,
No, you don't. That's not hockey. Come on, Mike.
Oh, shut up.
That's like the anchor bar of hockey. Come on.
No, I mean,
but nobody gets murdered using a tennis ball.
I was a street hockey goalie playing in like 5-degree weather with those orange bricks being shot at me, with Milek goalie pads, which you could feel everything through.
That was when road hockey was real road hockey, Russ. I didn't wear a mask, and I still maintain.
I played goalie a little bit when no one wanted to, and those pads that we had were awful.
Yeah, oh yeah, though they were terrible.
They weighed 100 pounds and they barely protected you. Like it didn't seem possible.
I used actual hockey pads. But remember,
we had them too, but they weren't great.
They weren't great. But remember the goalie pads back then were basically up to your knees. And I had like.
All right, so yeah, you're right. You're right. So I had a friend who was like considerably wealthier than me, who was playing ice hockey, and so I couldn't afford to play ice hockey, but I would get his hand-me-down ice hockey equipment. He was a goalie, and so I would go have his chest protector and all that stuff, and then I got his pads his goalie pads when they came to me, and they were full of deer hair, and that's what they used to stuff in them, and they were full of deer hair, and they would be waterlogged from playing on ice all the time. So I mean, these things they each weighed like 30 pounds.
Yeah.
So my quickness would go right out the doors. I'm like, I can't wear these.
And I had the same thing, but the thing was that the stuffing of these hockey pads, they started coming out off of the top of the pads. So we started stuffing the old T-shirts and stuff like that inside of them.
Pantyhose. We used to stuff them with old pantyhose. Which is true.
You're in a different neighborhood than I was.
Hey, before we do the over/under, a couple things.
My most embarrassing moment, real quick.
All right,
my most embarrassing moment was playing goalie. And like you say, you would stuff your pads with stuff, and my mom would have, she would just give me like the old pantyhose that they would get, from that came in the egg, and she would give me them, and she would give me those little things, and I would stuff them in there. And I remember one time playing, and there was a melee in front of the net, and I was all over the place, and the pantyhose coming out of, and like landing like right in the crease, and one of the players in our team like grabbing the pantyhose with a stick and holding it up there, was like, oh, look what I got, that was like my wonderful moment as a kid of like being totally humiliated.
Couple notes from last night.
Being humiliated in hockey. Ever since then, I get humiliated on a daily basis with hockey. So there you go. Continue.
Couple notes from last night. Obviously the Devils are the Devils. We'll leave that alone for the moment. Right now, early part of the season, I made reference to it the other day. Henrik Lundqvist is the best goalie in hockey right now. He is. He has a .939 save percentage. Even Nathan McKinnon and Scotty pointed this out on Sirius this morning, and he was right. McKinnon scored a goal, a shootout goal on Lundqvist like a year or two ago in a certain spot, lower corner. He tried it yesterday and he couldn't do it. And if you remember, I said earlier in the year, Lundqvist guys were going high corner on the glove and they couldn't get it this year. So in the off season, he worked tremendously on his weaknesses. And now there's no scouting report again on Lundqvist. He's got a .939 save percentage, guys.
Yeah, at a certain point, Russ, they may have to trade him. He's going to undo their opportunity to rebuild.
No, I agree. And then the Flyers-Panthers game, obviously the Panthers need Luongo. We know that. And Hutchinson didn't play horribly. The defense didn't show up for them for a couple of periods. And then the Flyers played this ridiculous game of shortening the bench defensively. And look, Ivan Provorov's had a horrible start to this season. He was a -2 again yesterday. The interesting thing is he still played 27 minutes. The guy who was +4 in that game was Christian Folin, and he only played 3 minutes in the third period. He had like 15 minutes in, I think, for the first 2 periods as a +4, and yet why did the bench get shortened on the defensive unit? It didn't make sense, and it aided in a comeback. Like, if you have a guy playing that well, if your best guy's not playing so well, guess what? Move to the end of the bench.
Yeah, you're right about Folin. I mean, and when he played, and the thing that really gets me about the Provorov thing is that he obviously was, he's a star. He knows he's a star. He's gonna be the Flyers captain someday, in my opinion.
Yeah.
He's got he's not very Russian when you talk to him. He has way more Canadian. His influences are way more Canadian. But he is he's trying to do more stuff because he's getting more confident. And as he does more stuff, this pairing with Ghost is really not working. Like that's what I can see. Like whenever they are together, and it's not all the time. I know they're in different situations.
Yeah.
But when he is out there with Ghost, it's a disaster. It's like, it really is.
They almost should change it. I agree. And it's just, it's one of these things where it was really getting obvious. He played 3 minutes of shorthanded time, Provorov. It's a lot. Like you gotta look at that. The other thing is,
I would put him with Folin, to be honest, because I honestly think Folin is fast enough and smart enough and defensive enough that would allow Provorov to do what he wants to do. Because what is happening?
McDonald literally got sat just because they wanted to sit him and give Folin the game, and Folin proved himself.
Yeah,
he was sort of penalized for it. The other thing in this game was, and I cautioned everybody about this first couple games. Vorobiev now was a -1 in that game, and he played 8 minutes in an overtime game.
Yeah.
Like, again, this is not going to help this guy develop. Either you go all in and let him play for a month in the same spot with the same guy so you see what you have, or you send him down. Because, again, this is what a coach like Dave Haxtell will do. You have a problem defensively, you have a turnover, you're going to stop playing.
Especially what this reminds me of, and then we can move on. But this reminds me of, and I said it from the beginning, Vorobiev reminds me of Pierre Bellemare. Like in so many ways, like he comes in and in the preseason. Remember Bellemare's first preseason there was phenomenal. He started off the season really well, and then ended up getting almost no minutes all the time. And we've seen what Bellemare can do in Vegas when he given a little minutes. It's obviously he's got the skill and talent to do so. But this is Haxtell definitely has his players that he likes, and the real big story that's surrounding the elephant in the room, not the 900-pound elephant in the room, but the elephant in the room behind the Flyers right now, is the fact that Simmons is really good.
Yeah,
and they can't sit back and and I talk about this is not going to be somebody that they're going to be able to let go, and they're going to have to figure out something else. Is what I think is happening.
They could make a change of direction here and say, because I think Simmons is not going to bankrupt them. I think if they get to terms and they want to give Simmons 5 years, I think Simmons would stay. Then that does mean that somebody else would go. And you know what? If that's the way it is, so be it.
That's gonna. The reason I think is more than just what Simmons is doing on the ice, which is like by far the best forward on the ice at times, but it is also the fact that you got to remember that Simmons is such a spiritual guide in that room that this is a really hard thing. And so then it's all being, of course, amplified by the fact that JVR, who was basically brought in to replace Simmons, is injured, right? So that's what's happening. Is to me that's like
that's why I think that you can't make a determination on Simmons until JVR is back and see how effective he is. And if they're not a playoff team when it comes around to February 25th, then I think all this is out the door, because it depends on whether they're willing to sign.
Trade him, he would certainly sign back with him. He is that kind of guy.
Okay.
Yeah, they got to do it the right way though, because they're edging on pissing him off a little bit.
Yeah, it's not going to happen, I don't think. But here's the other thing. The other thing with this team is you have to decide now when you're making a determination how a player's playing. Is it because of the coach we have, or is it because of the player? Because let's face it, I don't think this coach is going to be around for the next, for the second year of Wayne Simmons' next contract. And so, like if you remember with the Rangers, John Tortorella ran Marian Gaborik out of town, and then John Tortorella was gone a short time after. And as the organization, just sitting around like, why did we do that?
This is the tough thing with Hackstall, with judging Hackstall, right? It's really a tricky situation because he's made a couple moves. I guess the best thing he's done is, you could argue the Couturier Giroux thing. Okay,
Right.
put that together, and really, but which took some guts because Giroux has been a center. But usually the tough thing about this team in the Hackstall era is that they are terrible at getting out of slumps, and that usually that is a coaching thing. There's no two ways about it. Like this team, when it gets out of slumps, gets out on their own. It feels like they don't get out of slumps with a coach. It takes them twice as long, but they do eventually get out of them on their own, just because they have some good talent. But that's the issue.
They got a lot of issues. They really do.
And the goaltending, of course, is a broken record, right? So that I think Pickard is doing a good job for them. But I don't think he's obviously that's a real short-term solution. So
yeah. All right. Look, we're gonna do the over/unders.
Let's do a couple because we got to get out of here. But let's.
Well, we can do. Just don't elaborate on them. We'll each do two, and then two more.
You guys do yours first. Go ahead.
All right, so I'll say for Colorado, there's a 90.5 for points. I took them for the over, and there's a couple of easy ones here, so I'm even leaving them out. And then for Columbus at 97.5, I'm taking them for the under.
Okay. Columbus, nice. Okay.
I'm writing it down. Give me two for you.
Do these have to be teams?
Yeah.
I missed the memo. Sorry, guys. I had over under for players. I got confused.
No. I sent you the link of the.
Sorry, I screwed this up. I apologize. I missed this. That's why I was confused.
All right, well, Mike, do yours, and
you guys do yours. You guys do yours. I'll bet mine in tomorrow.
Okay. I had Buffalo over 79.5.
Okay.
And I had Anaheim under 96.5.
Okay.
Russ, you give me two more. Aki, you're going to do your four tomorrow then?
I'll give you the two easier ones. I'm going to go under for Edmonton at 91.5. That's the easiest one, I think. And I'm going to go under for Carolina at 84.5.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to tell you right now that I'm going over for Edmonton.
Shocking.
I am. Edmonton, guys, they're 2-2.
Yeah.
Let's mark this. They are 2-2.
They are a one-man team.
They're a one-trick pony.
They're a one-man team, and God forbid if McDavid gets hurt, they are a no-man team.
Not a bad trick.
I also at Russ have Edmonton under, and it was the over/under was 91.5. So that's that's a median number. And I'll be a homer. I'm going to go Toronto over 106.5. I think they're going to get below 110 points, but I think they had 105 last year, and I think they're a better team, so I think they're going to be over their number.
Based on what you're saying, I'm also going to go over with Buffalo. Yeah, that's 78. That was right. Mike, you did over on Buffalo.
Yes, I did.
Edmonton. Give me the over. What's the over on San Jose?
San Jose over is 97.5.
That's tough. I'm going to go under on that one.
Okay.
And but that's pretty close. That's pretty
Just
close.
to point out, Edmonton had 78
And Chicago. Give me Chicago.
Okay.
Over or under?
They're over.
Okay.
Over 84.5 points, because
I think that's a good one.
Okay.
I'm going with Chicago over. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so Ak has over Edmonton and Buffalo.
So Edmonton's going to go from 78 points to 92 this year. No way.
Yeah. They're going to do that with actually no conceivable improvement of their roster last year other than the addition of Ty Ratty. I don't think Ty Ratty makes a 14-point difference.
7 wins, guys. It's not like crazy. It's not
Okay. We'll see. All right, that's good.
I'm happy with their start. Last night they played a really tough Winnipeg Jets team. Granted, they did choke in that game, but they were in position.
They lost to the Rangers in a shootout.
They did, but like you said, Lundqvist played out of his mind in that game. He was really good in that game. The Devils, everyone's lost to so far. They lost that game. So and then they beat the other team. They beat. I'm not sure who that was. I can't remember, but they so they're 2-2.
10 goals for, 14 against. Okay.
And McDavid, like you say, what 9? You know, had the 9-point record or whatever it was. So it's craziness. And then let's also remember that Matthews is also setting records here too. Like as far as multiple point games, right? He's got multiple points in every game.
Every game, 7 games,
which is like crazy. I mean,
and McKinnon's got a 6-goal game consecutive streak too.
Yeah, I mean, we're really seeing a real, an incredible, like, you know, uptick of, you know, superstars, which is like really the era we live in is the era of superstars, which we haven't been in a superstar hockey era in a long time, and it's fun to be in one again. Like I felt like, you know, we went like 20 years between, you know, the Gretzky Lemieux era.
I'll get Peter's over-unders sometime today, and then what we'll do is that like once a month we'll check back to see how the progress is going.
Somebody made a good point in the chat room too. I think it's worthy of pointing out, only because it would make me right, that Detroit will be the worst team in the league. Detroit's differential: 14 goals for 30 against. They are already a -16.
Yeah, that's scary. That's scary this early.
They could set a record. I don't remember what the record is.
Last year, who was last year? It was terrible. What was the worst? Worst last year was ridiculous. Man, who was the worst team in the league last year?
I'm not sure who the worst. I can't.
Whoever the worst.
Ottawa might have been Ottawa.
Yeah, it was crazy. I forget what the number was.
Well, the Capitals is the one to beat. You know, the 74-75 Caps is a -265.
Yeah.
That's going to be hard. But in
Colorado from a couple years ago, the 48-point season, they were pretty bad too.
Yeah, they were bad.
Check out, if you want to check out my blog today, it's similar in the over/under thing. It's who's for real and who's in real trouble, and I talk about 5 teams in there, and I get into some of them. That's kind of fun as well. And you know, definitely something to look at. We can, you know, we'll get into that as we go along here. One of my you know, some of my wacky predictions, which I don't think we actually did a wacky prediction show yet, did we?
We didn't.
Yeah, so we got to do that because I've got a couple in there that are starting to look pretty good based on where they were. But you know, and the Devils, I watched a little of that game last night and just still very impressed by them. They really, you know, they really do have that feeling of like, you know, they feel
Buffalo
like
was a -80 last year.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, that was crazy. Thank you. All right, that's all the time we have for today, though. Remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. We will talk to you tomorrow.